Welcome to episode 59 of Finding Your Hidden Superpower Autism, Asperger's, and those of us who are neurodiverse. Today, I'm going to be talking about an article written back in November from Spectrum News, and I will uh, put a link to the article. So it's called Excess of Don't Eat Me cells signals may drive brain enlargement in autism. One of the problems with people who have autism, a lot of us, including myself, have been diagnosed with low processing speed. I have not been medically diagnosed with autism, but through the test of the APSPI quiz, it looks like I probably am autistic in some way or fashion. And so, but I have been declared learning disabled when I was in college. And they showed that when I was in college, when I did I think it's called the Woodcott test. I think it was a Woodcott Johnson test, something like that. But they diagnosed me with having a slow processing speed. And that's one of the things that is common with a lot of people who suffer from autism and Asperger's, and those of us who are neurodiverse. So, one of the key points that they're finding is that it isn't necessarily slow processing speed, it's just that we have more neurons. And so it takes us a while longer to computate because because one of our talents is that we're able to pull in more data from our environments. And in order to process that, we have to do a lot more computations in our brain because our brain is similar to an organic wet computer. And so there's a lot more information going in. And so our brains are only running at a certain level. And so it takes a while longer to actually get the same kind of output as a neurotypical person. And one of the themes, one of the theories is that a lot of us autistic people have been producing a lot more neurons in our brain. And so we only have a certain amount of energy that can be produced in our brain from ATP and sugars. And so, therefore, it takes us a while longer to uh, do all that computation speed and get the output that a neurotypical person will get. And one of the things is that what other scientists have figured out is one of the reasons for sleep. It isn't necessarily the reasons for sleep, but it's something that happens to us while we're sleeping, which is that the brain processes memories and it forgets a lot of things that have happened in the day, and it holds on to what our brain and mind think is the priorities to remember from that day. And so what happens is that there's a pruning mechanism. So just like a bush, if you just let it run wild and let it grow and uncontrolled and you're not pruning it, it's going to grow all over the place. And then there's going to be tangles in the bush, and the brain can experience some of the same things. And so one of the things that they believe is that there's a lot of entanglements with the neurons. So all of a sudden, even though the brain has more neurons, it's less efficient than a neurotypical person. And one of the reasons is because they're thinking of these pruning proteins that are supposed to be sending signals to get rid of certain neurons that are not being used properly. And so, direct quote, it says stiff competition, dysregulation pathways linked to cell death tend to lose out to those controlled cell proliferation in autistic people with large brains. So, what they're figuring out is that a lot of people with autism have larger brains and more compact brains, more neurons, and but the other systems which give energy to the brain in order to run the brain, it isn't necessarily as efficient as it should be. It would be like running a Ferrari on 87 octane gasoline. That engine is not going to run optimally unless you have premium octane to give the amount of energy that the engine, which is your brain, needs to optimally run. So uh, they call this, they say, a don't eat me cell signal called CD47 contributes to the brain overgrowth in people with what's called idiopathic autism. It has nothing to do with people being idiots. It just has to do with idiopathic is all of a sudden the autism sprouts. And so this is an unpublished research that was presented this over the Thanksgiving holiday through a conference called Neuroscience 2022 in San Diego. And two cancer linked cell signal pathways may also be disrupted in people with above average brain size, according to these new findings. Overexpression of this of the prevention of the pruning mechanism, CD47, which prevents immune cells called microglia from pruning neurons during development, leads to an overgrowth of neuroprogenitor cells derived from people with macrocephaly, which is basically you're growing more neurons. Leads to an overgrowth in neuroprogenitor cells. So problem is that your what is supposed to be replaced and destroyed in order for your brain to work optimally is not being efficiently used. And so they're figuring out. So it says, we are trying to better understand whether there are more common mechanisms shared between genetic forms of autism with this pruning mechanism not working properly. And so there's from Harvard Medical School, a person named Sundari Chetty. So the cells from 4 people with autism and disproportionate brain cell size are in the 98th percentile of overexpression of this CD47. So it's a very small study, and but I think it's important because a lot of the other studies that are out there are trying to figure out what are the genetic causes and what are the actual causes. So this may explain what happens with our brains, and I don't know what can be done about it, but sometimes it takes a long time. So it says Shin hypothesizes that a reduced rate of natural cell death could also contribute to brain overgrowth. Further research is underway to confirm the degree in which individual genes in this 16p11.2 region play a key role in the dysregulating the natural process of cell death. And this was reported in Neuroscience 2022. So this kind of explains at least some of the physical aspects of how our brains work, and that there are certain things in which may be beyond our control, and so that's a key point. Is you want to be able to understand yourself, and you want to understand that there are certain differences that are physical differences, And some things that are behavioral changes, we're going to have to work a lot harder than other people. And don't be too hard on yourself because everybody is different. And so the idea is that some of us have different gene regulations than other people, and that doesn't make anything wrong with us. It's just it's a difference, and unless it's causing you ill health, it's just something that you may have to put up with, and but at least you'll be able to understand yourself better, especially if they come up with a test to check out, a test that's common that you could actually get from your hospital, that you could test this. But even if you found out that this was true about you, how much are you going to really be able to do about it? But I just wanted to let people know that they're trying to figure these things out, and we just have to accept ourselves for who we are and work as best as we can to fit in with everybody else and find our unique ways of being who we are and accepting who we are, because that's the big thing. Is a lot of the times people will not accept who we are. They want us to be different, and there's only so much differences we can improve upon. And then there's other things that we're just going to have to realize that, at least right now, we won't necessarily be able to change. But that doesn't give us the excuse that you're the poor victim, because being the poor victim isn't really going to help you in the long run. It may have helped you while you were a child, but in the long run, if you're working in a job or if you're going to school, they're only going to be able to help you a little bit. You're still going to have to do all the hard work. And that's the bottom line, is we're going to have to work harder. We're going to have to accept that, unfortunately, this is the life that we have to lead. And but you have to persevere, because a lot of the times there's no alternative, because the other alternative is not a good alternative, because I want you here. I want you to be able to live a fulfilling life. And this is why I'm producing these videos. So I hope somebody is able to enjoy it other than myself. So I hope this helps somebody out there. And I'll look into more of this science and get it out there. So please click subscribe and like, and or if you have problems with what I'm saying, you can always comment, and I'll try and get back to you. And so have a good day. Have a great weekend.